going today. I think it's like 52 degrees right now. Sun setting about 6:30. We're getting close anyways. I wanted to start a new little series, or the first installment in a series called Tech Talks, or Tech Tips, or something of that nature. Not sure what the name is yet, but essentially just technical discussion about motorcycles. Now that might be the name actually. But I wanted this one to be about tires, specifically supermoto tires, because I'm on a supermoto and that's what I ride primarily. And kind of just pouring out my own thoughts about it, and then seeing if anybody has any concurring or differing opinions and conclusions on the topic. And I guess just if anybody rides like I do, what their preferred tire is, because I'm all the time buying and trying and asking, and it's definitely one of the more discussed topics between like me and my friends on any motorcycle, really, like what sizes, what brands, you know, the prices of them all and all that. So to kind of delve into the supermoto topic, I guess I'll start with like what I look for in a tire. And on a supermoto, I don't think or for how I ride a supermoto, I'll say that, I don't really look for any more than like 5,000 miles out of a tire. To me, that's really, really good. And even less than that is acceptable. 5,000 miles to me is just like, if I can get that before one's like, you know, completely slick down the center, to me, I think that's a really good tire. Performance-wise, the biggest issue you run into on a supermoto is just getting a tire hot. And so far in my experience, I've ran a Continental Conti Attack SM Evo, and I've ran a Michelin Pilot Power 2CT. Yeah, Pilot Power 2CT. And those tires were quite a bit different in how they heated up. The Continental would get much hotter, but all around I feel like it wasn't as sticky until you got it warm. Whereas the Pilot Power worked way better in like the colder and wetter conditions, and didn't really need to be as warm, but would get almost as sticky when warm, if that makes sense. But the Continental just had that little edge when it came to outright grip. And currently on the back, I've got a Bridgestone Battle Axe S22. And I do plan to put one of those on the front once this Michelin wears out as well. And I'm back to a smaller profile on the Michelin I had on the rear. I had a 150/60. This is a 140/70, so just a bit taller sidewall, a bit skinnier width. And I've not had the chance to really get it hot yet. All my knowledge that I'm speaking of how these tires warm up and what they feel like versus, you know, very hot versus very cold, is essentially from riding on the Dragon, because that's the only place I've been where I could get a tire to the point to where like the rubber wants to peel up. And I've never actually had a thermometer on them, but I mean, I can kind of get a feel of like, you know, what the temperatures are at and what the tire feels like whenever it's, you know, cold, warm, you know, casual riding, hot, you know, like mountain riding, and then really hot, which is like, you know, several minutes of hard braking, hard acceleration, and quick, you know, quick changes of direction on the Dragon. And that's kind of like my sliding scale. Even though I don't have a thermometer on it, I can kind of get an idea of what's what and how they feel and how they look in certain situations. And let's see, the tires, all, like none of them have ever put me down. Every time I've ever crashed this bike, it's definitely been my own doing. But I'd say the Continentals definitely gave me the most confidence. Just outright grip. I mean, I felt like you could absolutely, when they were hot, let me rephrase that. When they were hot, you could do absolutely no wrong. And that was a pretty cool feeling. I mean, I was definitely inexperienced the first time I went to the Dragon. And not like, as far as like not knowing the road. And kind of like just how to get around a supermoto on a road of that nature. And yeah, I wasn't all too comfortable trail braking. I I was not like, I tried to back it in a couple times and really just didn't all that well. And like now I'm pretty comfortable with all those skills, but then I wasn't, and I still felt really good. I think I made like one mistake when I was there that put me off the road, and I just kind of slid into the ditch and was able to hop right back out. And I mean that was a fan. I mean, it's almost to the point where you can hear like the tires adhering to the pavement. It's that sticky. At least that's what it feels like to me. I've heard people that actually do track ride fairly often say they are comparable to slicks, which is pretty sweet as well. You will not get the mileage out of a Continental though that I did out of the Dunlops. And in fact, the front Continental, when I had it was a 110/70, just like all the WR guys run, I suppose. That was the only tire I've ever wore out on the sides before the center, and part of that probably has to do with wheelies. But I mean, it got fantastic traction all the way up until the point in which I took it off. And the Michelin does as well, but like I said, the confidence, I definitely felt like it was going to slip, but it never has, if that makes sense. Whereas I guess just the smoothness of that Continental when it's hot, like you can just hang off the side of the bike, get your knee out, get in that position, and zero fear of anything really. You can just have so much trust in it. And the Michelin, I guess you don't get that, but you get the trade-off, like I said, is you get pretty good feeling all the time. Whereas the Continental, it was like, okay, I have to get this thing warm to achieve that, because it would slip. Like I 100% tried to do like even just like stoppies whenever they were cold, and it would chirp and whatnot. Now they do heat up quick. That supermoto specific compound is lovely because it does not take long, but it's still the name of the game. You got to get it pretty warm, and you, like I said, all that really does is also sacrifice mileage, which is kind of the name of the game with tires still yet. That's why I'm really interested to try these Bridgestones, because another important note about the Continentals and the not the Bridgestones, but the Michelin as well, they're kind of expensive, to be honest. Like full set of the Continentals, I think, is over like $300. Maybe more. I think a rear was like $190 the last time I checked. And this Bridgestone, I think, was around $100. And I want to say Pilot Power 2CTs, the Michelins, are tiptoeing around the $140, $150 mark. And I don't know. I mean, all those are pretty steep, but I mean, the Bridgestone's definitely, I'd say, the deal of the bunch. But I've not rode with it enough to tell you what I think about it as far as like all conditions and rain riding and whatnot. Although I kind of want to talk about sizing as well. Let's see. I started off with those Continentals, and they were a 140 70 17 in the back, and a 110 70 17 in the front. And that's what a WR250X, my bike, or mine's a R converted, but it's the same difference. That's what the stock tire size is, and that's just what I ordered off of because I wanted it to fit. Didn't want to play around with tire sizes just yet. And up front, I honestly never wanted to. Like I don't corner hard enough to feel the need to gain the 10 millimeters of extra width. I like the quick turn in, I like the picky front tire, and I mean, I don't see those lean angles enough to justify having the 10 millimeters extra of width. I mean, some probably do, and I can't speak on that because for me, in the summer months, that's like a trip to the Dragon, and that's like once a month at most. Let's see what else. The rear is what I actually want to talk about. The 140 70 17 Continental, and the Bridgestone that I've got on currently is also a 140 70 17. But the Michelin, I could tell a big difference, and it was a 150 60. And I don't know if tire measurements for a metric tire is the first number is always your width in millimeters. So like I'm talking like 140/70, that'll be 140 millimeters wide, the tire will, and that 70 will be 70% of 140 millimeters. Now I can't do that math off the top of my head, but that's just a quick reference on how to size a metric tire. It's actually pretty wild the amount of people that don't understand that still yet to this day. But regardless, the Michelin you could feel a large difference in, especially in wheelies. Like I'm beginner to intermediate stunt rider, and this Bridgestone feels like going back to dirt tires on this thing, or the dirt wheels and tires on the dual sport setup, because it just wants to fall over. And on the Michelin I could cruise third and fourth gear straight as a whistle, and this thing, it feels like I'm constantly making little adjustments on the bars and moving my body around and having to like hook and unhook my foot and kind of move my weight around a lot. Let's see if I can demonstrate. I feel like I'm very busy in a wheelie, and it just was never like that on the Michelins. Right there I'm cruising, then I have to correct. Gotta correct again. There's the car, I better put it down. Like even right there, like I started to feel like it was wanting to vary right and then left, all within a matter of 2 to 3 seconds. And that's just not very confidence inspiring, to be honest. Like, I love doing wheelies. Like, that is part of the fun of riding to me, is, you know, trying to learn tricks and, you know, just cruising in a wheelie. It's just a cool feeling, really. And this tire makes it really hard. I want to know if anyone else has had that issue on the Bridgestone S22s. It's not a deal breaker for me. I mean, I actually really enjoy the tire. What little time I've had it on here, probably a couple hundred miles, maybe even getting close to 1,000 now. But it's just, that's my one gripe about it, I guess. And I probably could have bought it in a 150 and it would have mounted up just fine. But I wanted to go back down to a stock size because I like that little bit of extra sidewall. I've got this theory on, like, you know, how a supermoto, or like how a bike tire generates heat, and I would imagine that as you lean left to right, you know, the sidewall compresses on either side, obviously depending on how much PSI is in it and whatnot, but also how much room it has to flex. And just from mounting the tires, I can tell you that a 150/60 has a much stiffer sidewall than a 140/70. So my theory is that if you give it more room to flex, and that the tire is able to flex more and adhere to the traction surface, has more travel, I guess you could say, within the sidewall flex to adhere to the blacktop, would that not, in theory, create more friction and then allow the tire to get hotter? That's my, I mean, I'd need to draw that out on like a whiteboard or something to really convey what I'm talking about, but I guess some people could refer to that as like bro science, but it's definitely, I mean, in my head it makes so much sense. And I mean, that's why I wanted a 140 on there, but it definitely takes away from the wheelies, and I never would have thought it would have until I put one back on it. Because I swear the Continental didn't feel like that. I mean, I've rode plenty of wheelies on the Continental back when I had it on there, and it was very, very stable in comparison to this tire. And I mean, I know every manufacturer is different, and even models within the manufacturer have different, you know, profiles to them. Some tires are very peaky, some tires are very rounded. It's untelling, honestly, but I don't even want answers as much as I just want to start a conversation about it and see if anybody else has these same thoughts. The road's clean up here. There's a few good corners up here. Problem is they're right in the middle of a suburban neighborhood. undisclosed speed, really practice body position. But in all honesty, that's really all I wanted to talk about, was just the ins and outs and ups and downs of the tires that I've ran, and hopefully hear in the comments and whatnot well, let me rephrase that. Hopefully hear in the comments about the tires you've ran and the experiences you've had with them, because that's really what I like to do. I like to talk bikes and talk all about the technicalities of them, the riding, the working on, the everything really. I just love motorcycles. I love hearing about them, love talking about them, anything to do with them. So tell me what you think. Like this video if you want, subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.